Hello, it's Nikki. How are you doing? This is part one. I was going to do it as a whole lot, but it may be too much. So this is part one of my goals for this year. And I'm using this exercise, I'm using this method just to show to you that you can start very, very broad and that you can enjoy this process and not feel boxed in by goal setting, not feel boxed in that you have to get everything correct and ordered and in a column in a spreadsheet. This is about the broad strokes, and actually this way of doing it really will it'll be a good starting point, I guess, for me to go even more fine-tuned and almost start with the outlines of the picture and then colour in as I go. Because some of the areas that I want to work on, I maybe don't know exactly what that looks like, and I want to hold space for possibility. So the way that I'm starting my goals this year is really thinking about what I'm interested in. So it's kind of like pulling together the topics if I was picking them from a pack of cards and going, okay, that's going to be something that I'll be focusing on or something that I'll be thinking about this year. So here we go. Let me pull up my notes and let me share with you what is inside my head. The first thing, and these are in no particular order, but this is a really good one to start with. The first phrase or the first topic I've been looking at is, what is my impact? And how am I providing value in the world? How am I contributing? And this is a really big thing for me. And it's about really noticing what I can do, because the temptation can be like, oh gosh, I'm not doing enough and I should be here, there and everywhere. And so I'm consciously thinking about it at the beginning here. So the impact for me, if you can imagine this as a spider diagram, so this is the way that I'm kind of planning this, is I'm thinking about the ideas that I might be having, what impact I can make with those, how can I make those easier for people to digest or to use or to play with or to experiment with. I'm thinking about my impact in my local area. So how I can continue to support my son's school, my daughter's nursery, how I'm showing up on the street when I meet people, making sure that I'm being very active in taking care of places that I come into contact with. So whether that's supporting our local park or creating a relationship with the local council, but also I'm looking at my impact in London, my impact in the UK and beyond, and being really clear about what I'm actually doing and making sure that I'm actually putting my money and my action where my mouth is. Because we can all say like, yeah, I want to do more things, but I just want to ramp that up. That also includes making sure that I'm buying really consciously. So I'm not just filling my food cupboards and my fridge with all kinds of stuff that I don't need, that I'm really being careful about what I purchase. I'm also thinking about my footprint and making sure that I'm supporting local businesses and farms and really ethically purchasing and making sure that I'm supporting local business. Yes, of course, we could do 2 clicks and get something by the big giants, but I don't want to have, and this has been a really big part actually of how I've seen my local area in lockdown. I don't want to see shops that have been closed down. I want to make sure that I'm using them and they're only going to stay there if people use them. So making sure that I'm really thinking about what I'm doing and I'm consciously doing. And my granny, and she's going to come up a lot actually, she was a very wise woman. And she always used to say, if I have it to give, I will give it. And that really was very impactful as a child, because not only did she say it, I saw it in action. I saw what she did. I saw her, how she contributed to the church, or she would do things, or she would make food for people, or she would fix things for people. She'd have people in her living room. And she's a real inspiration for me. And that is something that I want to carry on as part of that legacy. The next thing that I want to talk about is, where shall I go next? Okay, friends and family. I really want to have deep and meaningful and impactful relationships. That is my number one. And that's not just my immediate family with my children and my partner, but making sure that I give time to my parents and my siblings and I only have one grandparent left, but grandparents and aunties and uncles and godparents and cousins. I'm really, really lucky that I have a big family. But also friends that I hold near and dear to my heart, but I haven't seen for ages. I really want to foster those relationships and nurture them and take care of them, because we can all get really busy. We can all be pulled in all kinds of directions. And so I want to create more time and space for those. The next thing I want to do this year is I want to move house. And I'm not going to go into any more detail than that until I can do so. But what I will say is I am the closest, or we are the closest that we've ever been to this move happening. And one thing that I want to share, which again might be useful, is throughout this process, I've gone back to what would be the ideal situation, what feels really good. Because when you start to make changes, or when you start to make moves, essentially, sometimes what can happen is you start to listen to other people's narrative. Maybe we should move out of London. London's really expensive. You have less space in London. Oh, who wants to be in a city with all the pollution, etc., etc. And you have to be really clear and honor what your surroundings look like to you and what feels really good. And even though I grew up in Lincolnshire in a very small village and there were surrounding towns around, but I knew that London was going to be for me. Like, I started thinking about it. I started planning my escape when I was about 4 or 5 years old. Like, I'm going to drama school, mum and dad. And they'd be like, you've got to kind of do primary school first, but then we'll see how we go. And I finally got to the point where I could go at 18. And when I was about 13 or 14, I started to plant that seed that I'd be going places at 16. And they were saying, you absolutely won't be. So yeah, it was definitely in my plan. And when I used to come down to London as a child, because we had family down here, also I used to come down for auditions all the time, it felt very familiar to me. And actually it didn't feel like a scary place. It felt like it was vibrant. I loved the culture. I loved the diversity. I loved the storytelling, the history of it. And of course, I love to go by the sea as well. And I like to get out as well. But I definitely feel for our family, here is where we will be staying for the foreseeable. And I love raising children here. You know, it's a great place. And especially the area in North London, everything's very walkable. It's very easy. And bizarrely, it sort of does feel like a small town. So maybe there's part of that as well. But every time I kept coming back to this, it's easy to be swept along by other people's narratives. So I want to remind you every step of the way that you need to do your version of life and business. And I've seen this in my clients so often, and this is the work that I do. This is the magic, where some people will say, do you know what, I'd love to live in Spain for 6 months of the year, and then I'd like to live in the UK for 6 months of the year. Or I'd like to have a nomadic business where I travel all the time. Or maybe they want to be in the city from Monday to Friday, but they always go to their allotment in the countryside at the weekend. Or maybe they only want to work Monday through to Wednesday and take the rest of the week off. But it's about for them choosing, and for you for choosing how you want to do this, because you do get to choose. And I know that we're slightly bound by our circumstances, but there's always tweaks to be had. So yeah, this could be the year that things change dramatically for our family. And if you've listened to this for a long time, you will know this has been in the works for a long time. And yeah, it makes me feel emotional saying that. And I just want to thank you once again for holding this space and being in this space with me where I can talk to you and I can walk through this, and you're seeing me doing the work as well. The final thing I want to talk about today is possessions. And my children are at a stage where they are now 6 and 2. And I feel, especially with my son, he's going to a new chapter. And I noticed this with kind of Christmas present buying and what Father Christmas bought this year, that the needs are different. The activities, the vibes are different. And my daughter already, it feels like she's growing so quickly. And although she's only 2, I do feel like we're out of that initial baby stage. I mean, never say never, but I think 2 children is where we are going to complete, and I am very lucky in this situation. But we are closing that chapter on the baby stuff, and that is it's bittersweet, really. You know, there's a point where you think, gosh, I don't have to feed the babies anymore, or that they can do things, or they're independent, they go to school, they go to nursery, all of that. But there is a part of me that sometimes does miss those moments where you'll have seen the pictures, if you follow me on Instagram, of them being inside my dressing gown, sitting on the sofa, those kind of early weeks, those early months of figuring it out. And I look back on those pictures and go, wow, that went really, really fast. And what I have to do with the possessions and the paraphernalia that having a baby brings is to really be clear-headed about what we need to keep and what we don't. Because when I've really loved a period of time, my temptation is to want to cling on to stuff and to save every memory and hoard it all. And I have to be careful about that, because I don't want to block what is to come, or be one of those people who is always looking back and not looking forward. And also, having a shit ton of stuff is stressful. And this is something that lockdown has really taught me, and also the prospect of moving, is we have too much stuff. And too much stuff is stressful. And stressful on a spectrum, of course. But my goodness me, I am really craving some clean lines, some beautiful storage, some ordered systems. And I know that sounds really dull, but that's where I am right now. And in that process, I need to let go of some things. And I've started to do it, and it feels really good. I've started to get rid of things that don't make me feel good. And some people might be shocked at this, but if you are tempted by this, and there might be something in this, I urge you to explore it. My mum pulled out loads of stuff from her basement, and she gave me some boxes to sort through. And there were quite a few school books. And I looked at them, and I looked at them again, and I went through them. And lots of my secondary school life, I really didn't enjoy, not in the slightest. Like, I actually enjoyed the schoolwork. I actually enjoyed the learning. But going in every day, oh my goodness. And, you'd never want to tempt this at all. But had I been in year 9 and then a lockdown came in, there would have definitely been part of me that would have relished that, apart from missing, the few friends that I had. But to be able to not be in that fight or flight situation every single day, that would have suited me just fine. So I looked at these books and I shredded them and I recycled them and I thanked them. It was a very ceremonious occasion, actually. I thanked them, like, thank you very much for all this learning. But I didn't need to keep them. I didn't need them to take up space in this time. Likewise, old cards or bits and bobs that I'd kept, or books that I never read, but they were kind of cluttering up space, or things that I thought I ought to keep. In this climate, in this environment, it's really important to pass those things on. For example, I had a sewing kit. It was absolutely brand new and it had loads of nice cottons and needles and all sorts of things, all brand new. I'd never touched it because I bought it when I was in deep grief, when I lost my granny. She's popping up a lot today. And I bought it and I thought, right, I'm going to give myself a creative artistic project. And then when she died, she, what's the word? I was going to say loaned me. She didn't loan me. I inherited her sewing basket and it was a massive thing. And she was always somebody that made her own dresses and clothes. And she would always sew up my teddies. She would always sew on my ballet shoes. And that sewing kit is really synonymous with me being in her house, being in her company. And when I received that, when she died, I received that and some jewelry that she wore every day. It was so lovely to have that. And anyway, this brand new sewing kit has been sitting in my cupboard for the last 10 years. And just before Christmas, or between Christmas and New Year, I sold it. I sold this brand new one to somebody who came and bought it. I sold it for like 15 quid. And that 15 quid was lovely. And I'm going to buy some books with it because I'm always buying books. And she was so happy. And that's how she was going to start her new year. So I'm being really aware about possessions and what is in my space, what is in my environment. So I can be really clear about that. And to make sure that I am not filled all times to beyond any kind of capacity that I want, that I have to always have wiggle room. I don't want to have so much stuff that I'm tripping over things to even do something as basic as like get to the bathroom. I am looking at being a little bit more minimal, but also with discernment. I'm never going to be one of these people who just, like the Kelly Hoppen thing where I just have one white vase that maybe is not sentimental to me. No, I am very sentimental. I want to keep things, but in a very ordered way. Okay, that's it for today. I've got loads more to share. So actually, how long have I been wanging on for? About 18 minutes. So there's going to be much more to say on this. So do come back tomorrow. If you're interested in really setting some goals and doing this visioning work with me, the best place to go is to nikkiraby.com/goal setting, because there's a course there called the Magical World of Practical Goal Setting. And this will give you a really lovely framework to work with. Equally, if you want one-on-one support, I would love to work with you. I'm really excited to bring in some new people and some old ones that are coming through as well, which is always glorious. But some new people who think, do you know what? I've always sat on the fence, or I've always thought about this, but never quite done anything. Do you know what, mate? Now is your time. And you can wait. You can wait for some other sign, but if you need a sign, here it is. It might be here today. So email me. Let me know what you're looking for. hello@nikkiraby.com. I am now officially back to work, so let's have a session together. I do all kinds of things, so if you're not sure, just let me know what your requirements are, and then I can come back to you with some possible solutions. All right, thank you so much for being with me. As always, sending lots of love, and I'll speak to you soon.